broadcast day on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, a private, not-for-profit organization. Radio Reading volunteers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books to area blind and print handicapped persons who are provided reading radios. We broadcast on the subcarrier signal WNET-FM Radio Buffalo, and that is provided without charge by the Western New York Public Broadcasting Association. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, and any questions you may have. And please stay with us. Our Reading the Buffalo News is going to be coming up in just a moment. After I just mentioned, our phone number here is area code 716-821-5555. Stay with us for our Reading the News.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, December 9th. 9th of 2025. Your readers today are
Lita
and JJ Patak. And we're going to open as we typically do with the weather. Cloudy, becoming breezy today with snow and flurries accumulating a coating about an inch. Watch for slippery spots. We have a high of 33, periods of wet snow tonight accumulating about 1 to 3 inches with a low of 29. Tomorrow will be windy with snow and rain with a high of 38, a low of 23. Thursday will be cold with snow at times with a high of 28 and a low of 17. Friday, a couple of snow showers with a high of 29 and a low of 16. Saturday, snow with a high of 26 and a low of 16. Sunday, snow and flurries with a high of 23 and a low of 15. And Monday, cloudy with a high of 29 and a low of 24. Yesterday, we had a high of 22 and a low of 9. The normal high is 39 and the normal low is 28. The record high was 66 back in 1966 and the record low was 2 degrees in 1906, and last year's high and low were 44 and 37. The national cities, the high was Homestead, Florida, 88 degrees, and the low is Ely, Minnesota at minus 17. The air quality index today in Buffalo is good. The sky wash, the sun rose today at 7:35 a.m. and the sun will set at 4:41 p.m., so the days are getting even shorter. The moon will rise tonight at 10:09 p.m., and the moon that was out last night, which is still out, will set at 11:41 a.m. And for the weather trivia, on an average, does more snow fall at night or during the day? And the answer to that, at night, since the winter nights are longer.
And let's start with the higher deductible premiums to affect users of Obamacare. Millions of Americans are confronting the highest health insurance costs in years. For those enrolling in Obamacare for next year, the plans will cover a considerably smaller fraction of their medical bills. More and more people are discovering that their deductibles are rising significantly, worsening fears that they will no longer be able to pay for medical care. That's on top of higher premiums. They could more than double. With affordability increasingly out of reach, some people are facing the dire prospect of dropping their insurance altogether, even if they're still eligible for subsidies. Others may forego doctor visits or trips to the emergency room to avoid the expense. The contentious debate in Congress over the future of the enhanced subsidies under Obamacare that are set to expire this month has largely focused on the rise in premiums. Most people will still qualify for some federal tax credit in 2026, but many will find that monthly costs are doubling if the generous subsidies are not extended. The Senate is expected to vote on whether to extend the subsidies, although Congress could wait until next year, even after the subsidies have expired. President Trump has floated supporting some sort of extension, but it is unclear what kind of compromise would muster enough Republican backing to pass. As medical costs have climbed, health insurance at all levels has become more expensive. Contributing factors cited are higher overall prices for prescription drugs, the cost and the exploding use of obesity drugs, tariffs, and increasing labor expenses. Because many plans under the Affordable Care Act already carry a high deductible, people may not be able to find cheaper policies to significantly reduce costs. Nearly a third of the 24 million people who signed up for coverage under the ACA last year enrolled in the least expensive kind of plan available to everyone, a so-called bronze plan. These individuals already pay a large share of their medical bills. The average deductible for a bronze plan has climbed to roughly $7,500 in 2026 from under $7,000 in 2021, according to KFF, a health research group. They don't have that option to switch to a lower premium plan with a higher deductible, said Cynthia Cox, an expert on Obamacare for KFF. Some of those affected retired early and must wait until they are 65 to enroll in Medicare. In addition to high deductibles, some plans may require people to pay a large share of out-of-pocket costs in other ways, such as co-payments or co-insurance. Even the caps on how much people have to pay in out-of-pocket costs are going up. The out-of-pocket maximum, which does not apply to those with the lowest income, will reach $10,600 next year, about $1,200 more than in 2025. People look at $10,600 and panic, said Jennifer Chumbley Hogue, an insurance broker in Texas who sells ACA plans. There's a big difference to the consumer between $9,000 and $10,000. Others are worried about the financial risk of hospitalization, which will require upfront payments of thousands of dollars. For example, Patty Reed, a small business employee in Los Angeles, had a plan with no medical deductible, but next year she will have a deductible of $5,200. That is on top of her plan's higher premium, $1,700 a month next year. Reed, who's 60, has qualified for federal and state subsidies that brought the premium cost down to $1,100. Because her income varies year by year, it remains unclear whether she will qualify again. I feel like I can never get ahead, Reed said. She's weighing buying a plan with a higher deductible but worries about what she might have to pay if she goes to the hospital. It's a gamble, she said. In a KFF poll in early November of people enrolled in Obamacare, a quarter reported that they were very likely to go without coverage if their premiums doubled or if they had to pay $50 more a month if they paid no premiums for 2025. Half said finding another source of insurance if their Obamacare coverage became unaffordable would be very difficult. Eric Littman, a self-employed chiropractor in New Jersey, knows he will be paying more to insure his family of four. The problem is that it's also going up as the deductible, co-insurance, and out-of-pocket amounts, he said. Absent federal tax credits, Littman could pay about $35,000 in annual premiums for a mid-tier plan that will have a higher out-of-pocket maximum of $17,000. A cheaper plan further limits coverage, raising the specter of even higher personal cash outlays. You essentially don't have insurance for the small things. You only have insurance for the $100,000 hospital bill, Littman said. With Republicans and Democrats still at a stalemate over the subsidies, expiration seems increasingly likely. Some Republicans say they plan to develop an alternative to the Affordable Care Act, and Trump has suggested replacing the subsidies with cash payments. Obamacare critics argue the law provides coverage that is far too generous and too costly. They also contend that doling out with the expanded subsidies encourages people to choose plans with lower deductibles and out-of-pocket costs.
Thank you. The Swarmville fire is awarded up to $1 million in a legal fight. This is from Stephen Watson. To one member of the Swarmville Fire Company, the potential $1 million in damages the organization won following a drawn-out court fight with its former law firm is not justice, but it is vindication. A state Supreme Court jury deliberated for about an hour before finding the former Hogan Willig law firm had engaged in attorney deceit, among other misconduct, while representing the volunteer fire company in East Amherst and Clarence. We had 6 strangers tell us we weren't wrong. We've been right for many years, said Steve Moeller, a Swarmville board member and former president. To be honest with you, it's kind of a dry topic. It wasn't sexy and exciting. It isn't corruption at a strip club or anything like that, but it is attorney deceit and attorney deception, and frankly, that's the kind of stuff the public needs to know about. The jury verdict and award will come just days after Hogan Willig suffered a setback in its own lawsuit against the fire company. The firm was seeking tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees its lawyers said they were owed, but appellate judges agreed with a lower court that Hogan Willig wasn't entitled to this money. Swarmville had hired Hogan Willig to pursue compensation from the firms responsible for the defective design and construction of a new fire hall. Hogan Willig became Tiburon Law following the suspension of the law license of the firm's founder, Corey Hogan, in an unrelated matter. Managing partner Diane Tiburon defended the firm's work and denied Hogan Willig lawyers had engaged in wrongdoing. She said the firm planned to appeal the jury award and to ask the judge to set aside the verdict. We feel this is not supported by the evidence that was presented, and it certainly flies in the face of all the work that was done for the Swarmville Fire Company by Hogan Willig, Tiburon said in an interview. Swarmville sought legal help after members said they found serious problems with their new 17,000 square foot fire hall at 6971 Transit Road soon after it opened in 2004. The fire company pointed to a leaky roof, a firewall that wasn't up to code, and a concrete truck bay floor that didn't cure properly. Swarmville leaders thought legal help in pursuing claims against K2M Architects, which designed the structure, and Picone Construction Corporation of Clarence, the builder. Both companies denied claims of improper work. Swarmville board members turned to Steve Cohen, an attorney and company member who in 2007 filed a complaint seeking $1.26 million in damages plus interest. 2 years later, the Lorenzo and Cohen law firm merged with Hogan Willig. As the news previously reported, fire company officials said the suit over the years passed through various Hogan Willig lawyers and paralegals who presented invoices that lacked specifics. Swarmville officials said they suspected Hogan Willig was stringing them along to run up their bills. Hogan Willig offered to discount his fees by 50%, but the firm's lawyers came to feel nothing they did satisfied the fire company. We couldn't settle for a number that didn't make sense. Given the conditions of the building, Hogan said last week, the last thing we wanted to do was drag it on, but we also didn't want to go to court and lose the case. This came to a breaking point at a 2015 meeting where Hogan Willig's attorneys grew annoyed when questioned by the fire company leaders about the case's readiness for trial. The lawyers left the meeting and sent a letter the next day defending their work in the case, but saying their relationship with Swarmville leadership had irretrievably broken down. It would have been unethical for us to continue representing them, Hogan said recently. You can't have a client that thinks you're a liar and thinks you don't know what you're doing and continue to represent them. The Swarmville firefighters turned to the law firm of Kenny, Shelton, Liptak, and Nowak. The new firm in 2017 won a $1.3 million settlement with K2M and Picone, which did not admit wrongdoing. The Swarmville board members said the current attorneys say this shows the case could have reached a conclusion much sooner if Hogan Willig hadn't mismanaged the file, but Hogan and Tiburon say the settlement wouldn't have happened without the groundwork laid by the extensive efforts made by Hogan Willig. Tiburon said a quick settlement would have been a disservice to the fire company because some issues with the fire hall didn't become apparent until later on. This was not a simple file. It was a complex litigation, and we worked diligently. Yes, there were different attorneys on the file, but we right-sized our fee around the work that was done, Tiburon said, adding, the suggestion that there is deceit is just mind-boggling to me. Hogan Willig, later Tiburon Law, said it was owed 20% of the net recovery on the fire company's settlement. A firm representative said this amounted to $150,000, but added Hogan Willig later agreed to accept 10% of the net recovery, or $75,000, plus unpaid expenses of $11,600. D. Charles Roberts, Jr., one of the Swarmville's current lawyers, said Hogan Willig never told this to the fire company and said the true figure sought by Swarmville's former lawyers was $332,625. Not surprisingly, the two sides can't agree about the financial figures at the center of the dispute. Roberts said Hogan Willig and Lorenzo and Cohen were paid a combined $251,577 for their work on the case, while Hogan Willigan says the figure was $214,500. Hogan Willig also notes Kenny Shelton at just over $280,000, and Roberts at about $340,000 for his work at two law firms have received far more in legal fees from the fire company. The state Supreme Court justice in August of 2024 dismissed Hogan Williams' claim for additional fees, saying the firm gave up its right to this money when it ended its relationship with the fire company when they quit without justification, Roberts said. Hogan Willig appealed, but the State Appellate Division, 4th Department, on November 21st upheld the lower court ruling. Hogan Willig, represented by Tiverton, will appeal if it can persuade the State Court of Appeals to take up the case.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 9:15. Flipping over to the editorial, true Christianity is so difficult to find on Trump's team. As soon as he was nominated to be Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, with his Crusader Cross tattoo and his attendance at a hard-edged Calvinist church, became a natural vessel for liberal fears about Christian nationalism. This is a term that can be understood in two ways. The first emphasizes the Christian part and imagines nationalism as the vehicle through which conservative believers impose their doctrines. That's the vision that inspires the strong liberal paranoia with images of inquisitions and witch trials. The second understanding, in which nationalism is the controlling word and the religious modifier is the pinch of incense that makes believers comfortable with worldly deeds and choices. With this kind of Christian nationalism, the core fault might be too little religious moralism in politics, and this understanding often seems closer to the realities of the second Trump administration. Start with the current controversies surrounding Hegseth, including his orders to rain down death on Venezuelan boats believed to be carrying drugs. I don't want to say that a policy of direct attacks on drug cartels is inherently inconsistent with Christian ideas about just war. Perhaps a case could be made and a strategy constructed that clarifies when exactly a drug mule becomes a combatant. But I do not hear such a case from Hegseth or the administration. The argument instead is mostly a bloody-minded utilitarianism. Bad guys being killed save American lives. You can trust us that these are all bad guys. No, you can't see the legal justification, and anyway, Barack Obama killed more people with his drone strikes. From Hiroshima and Nagasaki to post-9/11, American hawks have never felt especially constrained by religious attempts to put limits on the use of force. What's notable now, though, is how widely the religious deficit extends. When the Trump administration slashed foreign aid programs that often reflected an explicitly Christian humanitarianism, some religious conservatives welcomed or made their peace with the cuts. But with the exception of the transgender issue, more right-wing coded religious priorities have also received little attention from this administration. It has conspicuously kept the anti-abortion movement at arm's length. It has offered, at best, symbolic moves toward the regulation of spreading vices that evangelical Christianity especially once vigorously opposed. Nor has it yet offered serious responses to the newer religious concerns over falling birth rates. The administration has offered a lot of rhetoric about the value of Christianity to American civilization, along with presidential complaints about Christian persecution overseas and pious social media posts on Catholic holidays. But in the absence of religious-informed policymaking, this sometimes feels more like a performance of a Christian politics. I should stress that sincerely Christian policy making can go badly astray. Where the Middle East is concerned, I prefer Donald Trump's pagan transactionalism to George W. Bush's evangelical idealism, or simply prove unpopular. I don't imagine that a war on porn would dramatically improve Trump's approval ratings. And sometimes the Trump administration's not especially religious priorities reflect its supporters. The right's coalition is more secular than in the past, and even many church-going conservatives seem more concerned about immigration than abortion. Many very online converts are more invested in meme wars than moral legislation. Nonetheless, I think a more Christian politics could serve the White House on three fronts. In policymaking, a Christian social vision would help the administration come to grips with the central social problem of our time, the substitution of transient hedonic vices for permanent commitments. In politics, a public rhetoric infused with more Christian charity might win an increasingly unpopular administration some friends. And morally, in certain concrete cases, from the treatment of the detainees shipped to a Salvadoran prison to the fate of alleged drug runners our missiles might have left hapless in the sea, a little more Christianity in its nationalism might prevent this administration from doing wicked things.
Thank you. A couple of interesting editorial cartoons. In the first one from Adam Ziglis, we have a drawing of Josh Allen, our wonderful quarterback, holding a giant football on his shoulders. And that's pretty self-explanatory there. He's really holding up the ball there. And then from Chip Bach of the Creators Syndicate, we have Poutine talking with someone, and he says, I take Ronald Reagan's approach to peace deals. And the person across from him says, trust but verify? And Poutine answers, I win, you lose. And from my view, there are many paths to fitness, and this is from Kurt Lawrence of Grand Island. I hate running. I know many people love it. Amen. Not only as a workout tool, but as an enjoyable experience. I never really liked it, but experience I just had confirmed that it would never be for me. We always go to the 4th of July parade on Grand Island. It is a very well attended community event. Before the parade is a 5-kilometer road race that is also very popular. A while back, actually quite a while back, when I turned 40 and put on a few pounds, I thought, hey, I should start running. Oh boy. It went in March and I decided to train for the parade race as a perfect way to get in better shape. So I started running 3 miles after I got home from work each day. The first few days were tough, but I figured it would get easier and more enjoyable as I continued to do it. It had the reverse effect. I disliked it more and more. I got to the point where I started looking for other things to do at work because I knew that when I got home I had to run. It lasted 2 weeks and finally said to myself, why are you doing this? You hate it. I still wanted to get myself in better shape though, so I joined a health club. This was much better. I enjoyed weight training, but couldn't get into cardio. I found running on a treadmill or riding on a stationary bike incredibly boring. So I would just lift some weights and then walk around and talk to people until I was ready to lift some more. I'd be there for 90 minutes and probably do about 30 minutes of training. I made some new friends, but didn't get very effective workouts. Someone suggested I try fitness classes. I tried circuit training class. It was just what I needed. This consisted of short interval exercises of 45 seconds to a minute for an hour total. Use weights for some and do cardio training for others, and this fit me perfectly, forcing me to do a full body workout. I bounced around for a while at different gyms taking these classes. After retiring 3.5 years ago, I settled at a place where I've been ever since. It's a class mainly attended by women my age or older. They're all in great shape, which I realized my first day when I looked over and saw them all doing a full plank. Oh boy. There's a large group of us that have been coming consistently 2 days a week since I started. We come so regularly that if one of us misses a class, everyone becomes concerned. One of my favorite classmates hasn't been here for a couple weeks. A good friend of hers told me that her husband had died, and I felt so sad for her. She was such a fun, positive person, so bubbly, always a smile on her face. I thought, if she ever comes back to the class, she'll be such a different person. But lo and behold, she was back within a week or so, still with a smile on her face, even though I'm sure she was still full of grief. I knew this was due to a great support system from her family, but it must have helped a little to have this routine waiting. Everyone knows that exercising is great for you. The moral of my story is to find a way to work on that so you enjoy it. Make it a part of your routine, and you'll make an effort to always show up and do it. For me, it's taking a class with my fun group of women. And as from Kurt Lawrence of Grand Island, who found a better way to get fit than running.
Who is calling the shots for our children? The news on Friday that a CDC panel is recommending that newborns not be vaccinated for hepatitis B is frightening. As the New York Times put it, the divisiveness and dysfunction surrounding the decision raised questions about the reliability of the process and the future of the CDC. Not to mention questions about the result of that process and how many children will pay for this political theater. The shots for newborns have been recommended for 30 years. No new scientific breakthroughs since then have come along to replace them or change the calculus in favor of them. Hepatitis B has been eliminated in newborns. Half the cases in children before 1991 were not due to an infected mother. Hepatitis B can also be spread by the use of the same household objects of infected persons. We know it's safe and we know it's very effective, Dr. Cody Meisner, a professor of pediatrics at Dartmouth Geisel School of Medicine and one of the panelists, said on Friday, warning that if the vote passed, we will see more children and adolescents and adults infected with hepatitis B. But the panel was stacked with the anti-vaxxers, whom RFK Jr. had brought to the table and empowered. He fired and replaced all the prior members of the panel, and I suppose we should be impressed that there were any dissenting votes. Or maybe it should scare us more. In another divided vote, the panel also recommended that parents who choose to have the 3-shot series of vaccinations be advised to have an antibody test after the first shot to see if it is effective, even though there is no scientific evidence that antibodies show up that early. According to Dr. Meisner, it was kind of making things up. I mean, it's like Never Never Land. Except there are real lives on the line. Public health reports suggest that as many as 70% of the adults with hepatitis B in this country don't know they have it and could be exposing loved ones through shared objects in the house. If those loved ones are unvaccinated, in the hours after the vote was made public, the panel was denounced by public health experts. A number made the point that this marks the end of the day when you can rely on the government for public health information, and raises questions as to insurance coverage, particularly for the unnecessary antibody test, much less for the vaccines themselves. One of the authors of the prior guidelines, Dr. Noel Nelson, a hepatitis expert at Cornell, said the panel did not follow the scientific evidence and risk undoing decades of progress in hepatitis B prevention, eroding vaccine confidence, and causing confusion among parents and healthcare providers. Secretary Kennedy made some kind of comment or commitment to Senator Bill Cassidy, himself a doctor and supporter of vaccines, to win his deciding vote for confirmation. Whatever commitment it was, if it included a promise to rein in the anti-vaxxers and protect Americans' children, it is not being kept. We look to the government to protect our public health, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not doing that.
From Another Voice, we have another article about health care from Stephanie Cheng, who is a board-certified anesthesiologist and medical acupuncturist at Hospital for Special Surgery. About 5.7 million Americans have an opioid use disorder, with about a third of adults reporting that they or a family member has been struggled with addiction. As an anesthesiologist, I know firsthand that these highly addictive drugs are often used for pain relief. That's why many physicians, myself included, have been working to minimize opioid use, including through a new intraoperative acupuncture method that I pioneered. Surgery is a common gateway to opioid use. It's a major trauma to the body, and effective pain control is essential during and after the procedure. That is where the Cheng protocol comes in. After a patient is under anesthesia, I place needles in various points on the ear that target fear, memory, anxiety, inflammation, and pain. The method, which is also often includes small currents of electricity, doesn't interfere with the surgery at all. One study I conducted found that 65% of patients undergoing knee replacement surgery who received acupuncture therapy used fewer opioid pills, maintaining a low-dose regimen in the 30 days after surgery. That's compared to only 9% of patients undergoing the same procedure outside the study. But despite its success and efficacy, many doctors aren't able to use it. The biggest obstacle is regulatory requirements. Training requirements for acupuncture vary state by state, and New York's are incredibly strict. Physicians must complete 300 hours of coursework, including at least 200 hours of in-state approved acupuncture programs, classes that often aren't convenient or available. Luckily, a bill introduced in the New York State Assembly could amend New York's education law to create a specific exemption allowing individuals without formal acupuncture credentials to practice auriculotherapy. Oh, I can't say. I'm sorry. Auriculotherapy, that's ear acupuncture, under strict conditions. This change would let anesthesiologists complete a short, targeted course in an intraoperative acupuncture and begin offering the treatment immediately. Intraoperative acupuncture is a narrowly defined, evidence-based tool and one we urgently need in the fight against opioid dependence. It could improve the lives of countless patients. New York State just has to let us use it.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. And now let's read an article. It's entitled, "Now It's Clear Why Trump Got Rid of Top Military Lawyers." At least President Trump didn't kill all the lawyers, first literally following Shakespeare's words in Henry VI, Part 2, on evading the rule of law. Instead, just a month into his second term in February, he and Defense Secretary Peter Hegseth simply fired the top lawyers at the Army, Navy, and Air Force, known as Judge Advocate General. It's what you do when you're planning to break the law. You get rid of any lawyers who might try to slow you down, Georgetown law professor Rosa Brooks said at the time, according to the New York Times. She wasn't alone in her fear or her prescience. Now the storylines embroiling Trump are creating a mess of lawlessness, hypocrisy, and potential war crimes in what conservative columnist George Will has dubbed this moral slum of an administration. And that owes, at least in part, to the fact that the president has gotten rid of good lawyers and other guardrails so he can act with impunity. Over Thanksgiving weekend, Americans got news of two actions that grotesquely captured Trump's amoral and immoral instincts, one involving killings, the other a presidential pardon. First, the Washington Post disclosed a twist on the September 2nd attack that was the first of 21 known U.S. military strikes so far on small boats allegedly hauling drugs, an opening of Trump's undeclared war on so-called narco-terrorists. The commander for the operation, reportedly following Hegseth's verbal order to kill them all, ordered a second strike when 2 of 11 men on board were seen clinging to wreckage. Dozens of other humans have since been blown up on vessels in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. The nonprofit news site The Intercept has first reported the September 2nd episode just over a week later, but its report was little noted at the time. On the 28th of November, following the Post report and CNN's confirmation, former military lawyers and a shadow watchdog group formed after the Pentagon purge in February released a 5-page legal analysis stating that it unanimously considers both the giving and the execution of these orders, if true, to constitute war crimes, murder, or both, punishable by U.S. and international courts. Prosecution could extend from Hegseth down to the individual who pulled the trigger, the former JAGS working group said. Hegseth and Trump have been trying to distance themselves from the imbroglio, while each man insists the strikes were lawful. "I don't know anything about it," the commander-in-chief told reporters on Air Force One last month, returning from his holiday golf break. But, he added, "I wouldn't have wanted a second strike." The designated fall guy seems to be Admiral Frank M. Bradley, who led the Joint Special Operations Command and ordered SEAL Team 6 to fire a second strike. Trump and Hegseth have repeatedly pointed to him, even as they insist they have his back. People at the Pentagon reportedly aren't reassured. Trump is using the controversial, meanwhile, to brag of his victories against drug traffickers, despite off-airing no public evidence that the dead men in those tiny boats were drug runners. Yet his boast couldn't be more dissonant with the weekend's other Trump-related news, the president's celebratory announcement on social media that he would pardon a proven big-time drug trafficker, former Honduran president Juan Orlando Hernandez. Against Hernandez, there were heaps of evidence, enough to convict him in a U.S. federal court last year on charges of running his country as a narco state, taking bribes, and putting his police and military in league with drug cartels to funnel more than 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. To stuff the drugs up the gringos' noses, he said, according to trial testimony. Trump made good on the pardon this past week, perhaps his greatest abuse of that presidential power in a long line of them other than the January 6th pardons. Hernandez was freed on Tuesday from prison. Why would Trump do it? Because he could. There is no one to stop him, both as a matter of justice and politics. This pardon is all but inexplicable. Quizzed by reporters, Trump gave his go-to explanation for pardoning the undeserving. The case, like his own in past years, was a Biden administration setup, quote. Never mind that the investigation on Hernandez began in Trump's first term, or that the federal judge in his trial was a Bush appointee, P. Kevin Castell, who went on at length before sentencing Hernandez for 45 years about the justice of the case. Then there's the third storyline snarled in the one about Trump's killing in international waters. His campaign against 6 Democratic lawmakers, all military or intelligence veterans, who made a video last month telling U.S. service members that they should not, must not, obey illegal orders. Seditious behavior punishable by death, Trump thundered, though the Democrats were stating the law and military code. Hegseth, dutiful lapdog, directed the Navy to investigate one Democrat, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, for serious allegations of misconduct. The alleged strike against survivors on top of Trump's general policy of lethal force against purported drug runners underscores why the Democrats spoke out. What's more, they did so a month after Administrator Alvin Halsey, head of the U.S. Southern Command, announced his exit amid reports that he was forced out for objecting to the sea strikes. But here's the good news. Even senior Republicans in Congress have been roused to object. The public should act as well, to pull another Epstein Files maneuver, creating so much pressure that Congress can't back down from oversight hearings. In other words, bring in the lawyers.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting.
Yes.
On a little bit different note, malls may be going the way, but Santa Claus endures, and this is from Samantha Christman. For a mythical man whose very existence was designed to spread cheer, it can be one of the saddest sights you'll ever see. A mall Santa waiting in an empty shopping center between visits from children. Sadder yet might be the old North Pole retail outposts that no longer exist. There are the long-gone places like the Summit Park, the Rainbow and Thruway malls, where Santa's Wonderland remains in pictures and fond memories. But then there are the recently lost Eastern Hills and Boulevard malls, where consumers await a major town center transformation at the properties. So, with fewer malls in Western New York, does that mean the market's drying up for Santa and his helpers? What happens to all those ho-ho-hos when all the shoppers are staying home? Home. There may be less than half as many malls as there were, but I'll tell you, the opportunities for Santas have gone in the exact opposite direction. It's just exploded, said Ded Taylor, founder and CEO of the Worldwide Santa Claus Network, an online school for prospective Santas. In fact, demand is so high for Santa to show up outside the mall that is outstripping the St. Nick supply, he said. Taylor spends a lot of his time encouraging people to go into the profession he loves, even as expectations for what Santas can do and how authentic they will look have skyrocketed. More people are shopping on their devices, and that's why they've been engaging with Santa too. As FaceTime and Zoom have become commonplace, so have live video calls exploded in popularity. The WSCN is a professional Santa school and provides free training for Santa Claus hopefuls. Taylor himself, who lives in Oregon, has been in several Hollywood productions, done Christmas parties for Jimmy Kimmel, Ellen DeGeneres, and the Los Angeles Lakers, and corporate gigs for Pinterest and Facebook. He charges $20 to $50 for live video calls, depending on how many kids there are and how close it is to Christmas, and asks for details and such things as pets' names in advance so he can demonstrate his omnipotence. The search for Santa on Cameo, a marketplace for personalized celebrity videos, returns dozens of Santas to choose from, ranging in price from $2 to $150. In addition to the digital engagement, Santa Claus is doing more family parties, professional parties, and office parties. Taylor charges $250 for half an hour. Santas love that much more because they have time to tell stories and interact more. It's not rushed, Taylor said. On the flip side, the more focused scheduled calls and appearances trim out a lot of wasted time that Santas used to spend waiting for visitors at malls during the slow beginning of the season, and it has boosted their earning power. It was just painfully slow. You get 1 or 2 families an hour, Taylor said, so now these new opportunities have just sprung up everywhere. Nearly really allow for greater experience in both the families and Santas. Nancy Trayer and her husband Franklin of North Tonawanda have been spreading joy as Mr. and Mrs. Claus for 30 years. They started out just wanting to entertain their son and nephews when they were younger. As their son got older, he began filling in as an elf, a job that has now been taken over by the Trayers' grandchildren. They do local events like Breakfast with Santa, as well as company Christmas parties and small business Saturdays, and they travel to meet families in person for one-on-one encounters at their homes. Many families hire them annually. It's seeing families grow up over the years, Nancy Trayer says. The Trayers miss holding court at their yearly breakfast at the Holiday Showcase, a favorite restaurant in Union Road in Cheektowaga that closed after 55 years in 2018. But the Trayers' other visits are still a source of great joy, she said. It actually gets Santa Claus and myself in the Christmas spirit, Nancy said. The kids are so priceless, their little faces light right up. And it's not just the kids. Believe it or not, grown-ups act like little kids again, she said. It's something about Santa Claus that makes all of us kids again. The Trayers' rates start at $40 per half an hour for a visit with 3 to 4 kids. Sometimes Mrs. Claus will read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." On Christmas Eve, the price goes up as the evening gets later. That's cheaper than the mall Santa Claus. Plus, you get Mrs. Claus and you get to take as many pictures as you want, she said, and the kiddos see Santa Claus does come to their house. She recommends keeping one-on-one family visits to that half-hour time to preserve authenticity. If you stay too long, they start asking too many questions, Nancy said, and there are still chances to have the true mall Santa experience. On a recent Saturday, children lined up to see Santa in Walden Galleria. On Monday afternoon, the fashion outlets of Niagara Falls, USA, is Santa with an unmistakably real beard sat on a giant red couch before a giant sparkling Christmas tree. Nearby, ropes were set up to keep families contained in a winding line, but they proved unnecessary as Santa and his helper waited for visitors. Still, he remained engaged, smiling and waving hopefully at passers-by. Most of them returned the greeting. But Santa Claus's presence in traditional retail centers is still vitally important, said Kathleen Peterson, manager of the Broadway Market on the city's east side. Santa is an integral part of the season of the market, she said. Having the big guy in hand is an important driver of foot traffic for the market, which is hosting Santa 4 times this month. Many consumers in the surrounding areas Many consumers in the surrounding areas walk to the mall, do their shopping, and get their kids' photo taken with Santa for just $5. It's become a tradition for many that keep the Broadway Market on top of mind at this crucial time of year. Adding in Christmas music helps create a festive atmosphere that gets people primed to spend. It wouldn't be the holidays without Santa, Peterson said.
And maybe go back to a little bit more seriousness. Trump unveils $12 billion in aid for struggling farmers. President Trump announced a $12 billion farm aid package on Monday, a boost to farmers who have struggled to sell their crops while getting hit by rising costs after the president raised tariffs on China as part of a broader trade war. He unveiled the plan Monday at a White House roundtable with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, lawmakers, and farmers. $12 billion is a lot of money, Trump said, adding that the money is coming from tariff revenue. Farmers have backed Trump politically, but his aggressive trade policies and frequent changing tariff rates have come under increased scrutiny. The aid is the administration's latest effort to defend Trump's economic stewardship and answer voter angst about rising costs, even as the president has dismissed concerns about affordability as a Democratic hoax. Upwards of $11 billion is set aside for the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Farm Bridge Assistance Program, which the White House says will offer a one-time payment to farmers for row crops. The rest of the money will be for farmers who grow crops not covered under the Bridge Assistance Program, according to a White House official who was granted anonymity ahead of the formal announcement to detail the new plan. The money is intended to offer certainty to farmers as they sell their current harvest as well as plan for next year's crops. In October, after Trump met Chinese leader Xi Jinping in South Korea, the White House said Beijing had promised to buy at least 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans by the end of the calendar year, plus 25 million metric tons a year in each of the next 3 years. Soybean farmers have been hit especially hard by Trump's trade war with China, which is the world's largest buyer of soybeans. China has purchased more than 2.8 million metric tons of soybeans since Trump announced the agreement at the end of October. Dissent has said China is on track to meet its goal by the end of February. These prices haven't come in because the Chinese actually used our soybean farmers as pawns in the trade negotiations, Dissent said on CBS Face the Nation. The size of the $12 billion aid package is roughly the value of total U.S. soybean exports to China in 2024 and half of the total exports of U.S. farm goods to China in 2024. Farmers appreciate the aid package, but they say it's likely only a down payment on what's needed, and government aid doesn't solve the fundamental problems farmers are facing of soaring costs in uncertain markets for their crops. During Trump's first term, he gave farmers more than $22 billion in aid payment in 2019 at the start of his trade war with China, and nearly $46 billion in 2020, although that year also included aid related to the COVID pandemic. But farmers don't want to rely on government aid to survive. I think we need to be looking for some avenues to find other funding opportunities, and we need to get our markets going. That's where we want to be able to make a living from, said Caleb Ragland, the Kentucky farmer who serves as president of the American Soybean Association. If farmers can't make ends meet this year, there will likely be additional consolidation in the industry, with giant industrial farms only getting bigger while the number of smaller family farmers continue to shrink. The farmers most at risk are younger farmers and those who rent most of the ground they farm because they don't have much ability to borrow against the equity in their land. Most established farmers will be able to borrow more to survive the trade war, but older farmers who spent their whole lives building up equity may decide to retire unless they are trying to help the next generation of farmers get established on their land. Iowa farmer Rob Walt is in a difficult position because he only owns 160 of the 2,000 acres he farms. So he's selling some of his equipment that's not essential and looking into whether he can pick up some overnight trucking jobs to help raise some cash. It is the point where I don't want to saddle my kids with the kind of stress that my wife and I are undergoing right now, he said. Trump also under pressure to address soaring beef prices, which have hit records for a number of reasons. Demand for beef has been strong at a time when drought has cut U.S. herd and imports from Mexico are down due to a resurgence in a parasite. Trump has said he would allow for more imports of Argentine beef. He has also asked the Department of Justice to investigate foreign-owned meat packers he accused of driving up the price of beef, although he has not provided evidence to back his claims.
Thank you. From Megan Minero, The Times. Congress gearing up to pass nearly $1 trillion defense policy bill. The House is expected to take up legislation this week that would authorize about $900 billion for the military, providing an increase over the White House's annual budget request. The bicameral version of the bill released Sunday includes $8 billion more than what the Trump administration had requested and what the House allotted as version of the bill that had passed earlier this year. The additional funding in the legislation marked a modest but rare divergence for Republican lawmakers from President Trump after a year of largely ceding authority as he made dramatic cuts to the government. Both chambers are racing to pass the annual defense policy bill before the end of the year and deliver it to the president's desk. One overarching goal of the bill, which authorizes spending for the 2026 fiscal year, is to streamline how the Defense Department meets its needs through research, contracting, and manufacturing. The bill would authorize an overhaul of how the department buys weapons. It also seeks to shore up the network of public and private organizations that provide a range of materials, products, and services to the military. Representative Mike Rogers, a Republican from Alabama, the House Armed Services Committee chair, said in a statement that the legislation was focused on building out the critical warfighting capabilities. I'm eager to send this to President Trump's desk so we can give our military the tools they need to remain the most ready, capable, and lethal force in the world, he added. Troops across the military will receive a 3.8% annual pay raise under the bill. And the legislation also seeks to codify more than a dozen of Trump's executive orders, including those aimed at accelerating the U.S. manufacturing of military drones, transforming the country's air and missile defense systems into a so-called Golden Dome to intercept foreign attacks, and authorizing the use of active duty troops to patrol the southern border. And the final bill includes some House GOP provisions about gender in the military that echo the Trump administration's efforts to end woke ideology, including a ban on transgender women participating in women's athletic programs in the U.S. service academies.
Now, as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Moraine Brown, nee Uhl, U-H-L, passed away on the 7th of December. Marie Hughes, born May 28, 1937, and passed away on the 29th of November. Ronald Cumrow Everett, born on the 22nd of August in 1934 and passed away on the 5th of December. Eleanor Lynette, nee White, of Williamsville. John A. Pelleth, born December 11th, 1956, and passed away on the 3rd of December. Alan Stalker, passed away on the 5th of December. William Wilsman, Bill, born on the 14th of January in 1940, and passed away on December 6th. Geraldine Chambers, born on the 5th of December, 1944, and passed away on the 19th of November. Thomas F. Linkowski, passed away on the 6th of December. And lastly, Debbie A. Clark, who passed away on the 3rd of December. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. Again, that's 716-821-5555.
And for a little entertainment here, we have the Royal Stars with Georgia Nichols. Happy birthday for Tuesday, December 9th of 2025. You are imaginative, analytical, and inspirational. You have excellent organizational and technical skills. This is a year of fun and pleasure. Your creativity and zest for life are the pinnacle, and the stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 being dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. Looks like everybody's going to have a pretty good day. Aries is 4 stars. You feel the need to get out and schmooze with others today. Sports events, funny activities with the kids, and romantic outings will rev your engines. Tonight, protect your kids. Taurus, 3 stars. You might want to make home improvements today or do something to tweak up your digs to make them more attractive. You might even rearrange the furniture. Tonight, domestic surprises. Gemini, 4 stars. Today you will express yourself with more courage and confidence when talking with others, which is why your style of communicating will be more direct and more forceful. Tonight, avoid accidents. Cancer, 3 stars. You might make an extra effort to earn money today or come up with some money-making ideas. You feel you will want to start something new. Tonight, check your belongings. Leo, 4 stars. Today, the moon is in your sign, dancing with Mars, which boosts your energy level. You won't shy away from physical labor or exercise. However, be careful about rushing into something without thinking first. Tonight, avoid knee-jerk reactions. Virgo, 3 stars. Home and family are your focus now, and many of you are doing something to improve your home or make it look more attractive. Today, in particular, you have the energy to kick things up. Tonight, an epiphany. Libra, 4 stars. In conversations with friends and groups, you'll assert yourself in a positive way today. If challenged, you will stand your ground. Tonight, a friend might surprise you. Scorpio, 4 stars. You make a strong impression on others today because you appear confident, energetic, and ready to take charge. Tonight, rebellious feelings. Sagittarius, I'm going to avoid Scorpio. Sagittarius, 4 stars. You are the traveler of the zodiac. You love adventure and excitement. You like to research, observe, read, and learn new concepts. Tonight, travel changes. Capricorn, 3 stars. You like well-planned endings. You also hate waste. Today is the perfect day to focus on how to make the best use of shared property and resources of others. Tonight, check your finances. Aquarius, 3 stars. Today the moon is opposite your sign, which means you have to go more than halfway when dealing with others. Tonight, patience. Pisces, 3 stars. This is a productive day for you. You feel energetic, enthusiastic, and ready to begin something new. Tonight, freedom beckons.
And today in history, on this date in 1965, A Charlie Brown Christmas, the first animated TV special featuring characters from the Peanuts comic strip by Charles M. Schulz, premiered on CBS. In 1979, scientists certified the global eradication of smallpox, a disease that killed an estimated 300 million people in the 20th century. In 1990, Solidarity founder Lech Walesa won Poland's first free presidential election since 1926. In 1992, the first U.S. Marines made a pre-dawn beach landing at Somalia in support of Operation Restore Hope. They were met by hundreds of reporters awaiting their arrival. In 2006, the Space Shuttle Discovery launched on a mission to add to and rewire the International Space Station. In 2013, scientists revealed that NASA's Curiosity rover had uncovered signs of an ancient freshwater lake on Mars. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
In 2019, an island volcano off New Zealand's coast called Whakaari, that's Whakaari, or White Island, erupted, killing 22 tourists and guides and seriously injuring several others. Most of the 47 people on the island were U.S. and Australian cruise ship passengers, on a walking tour with the guides. And lastly, in 2021, a cargo truck jammed with migrants crashed in southern Mexico, killing at least 53 people and injuring dozens more.
Well, we just got a couple of minutes over here, and
In the political notebook, Trump loyalist Habba resigns as U.S. Attorney. Alina Habba resigned as U.S. Attorney in New Jersey on Monday after a panel of federal judges ruled last week that she was serving in the position unlawfully. Habba will become a senior advisor to Attorney General Pam Bondi and is expected to have a role overseeing U.S. attorneys across the country, according to a person with knowledge of the matter. A former personal lawyer to President Trump, Habba began leading the New Jersey office in March. In July, when her tenure was expected to end, the Justice Department kept her in place through a series of complex maneuvers that led to immediate legal challenges. As a result of the Third Circuit's ruling, and to protect the stability and integrity of the offices which I love, I have decided to step down, Habba wrote, adding, "But do not mistake compliance for surrender. This decision will not weaken the Justice Department, and it will not weaken me." In her post, Habba blasted judges in New Jersey, but declined to extend her tenure, instead appointing her top deputy, Desiree Lay Grace, to replace her. The Justice Department fired Grace, keeping Habba in the role. Close.
you are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, December the 9th of 2025 on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and we'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Lita
and JJ Tech.
Listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
And we'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
JJ Patek.
and Lita. And the Vatican has overturned Buffalo Diocese again. Jamestown and Clarence parishioners rejoice. Catholics in two parishes slated to be merged, one in Clarence, another in Jamestown, are celebrating recent announcements that the Vatican has overturned those mergers. The Vatican's Dicastery for Clergy revoked decrees issued by Bishop Michael Fisher merging Holy Apostle Parish and St. James Parish in Jamestown and merging Our Lady of Peace Parish into Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary Parish in Clarence. Samantha Scalise said she was in disbelief Friday after opening her mail and reading Dicastery's decision on Holy Apostles. I had to keep rereading it because it was a too good to be true feeling of, did I read that right? Did we actually win? Said Scalise, procurator for a group of Holy Apostle parishioners who submitted a request for recourse to the Vatican. Scalise, who was headed out of town on a weekend trip, didn't have a chance to post an announcement on social media until early Saturday morning. The Reverend Paul Seigan, pastor of Catholic Neighbors in Faith, a family of parishes in Chautauqua County that includes Holy Apostles, later Saturday also notified parishioners of the decision. Scalise didn't get a chance to join in the weekend celebration, but she said the Vatican decision was the best Christmas gift she's ever received. It's a massive relief just because this faith community is part of my community, and all the changes that would have come with the merger and even all the hard feelings would have possibly made the community cease to exist, she said. So to have it continue on as it's been is so important. As part of a diocese plan announced in 2024 to reduce 160 parishes to 89 parishes and close more than 80 worship sites, Fisher issued a decree in January to merge Holy Apostles into St. James Parish in Jamestown, closing Holy Apostles Peter and Paul site and making its St. John's location a secondary worship site of St. James. Fisher's decree was to take effect on the 28th of January. A separate decree from Fisher in November 2024 would have merged Our Lady of Peace with Nativity, effective on the 8th of June. In both cases, parishioners appealed to the Vatican, put the decrees on hold. Relieved that they agreed with our position and glad and thankful that it happened, said Timothy Creenan, procurator for the Our Lady of Peace recourse request. It took a long time. We filed that back in January. Creenan said he was reassured the dicastery was seriously looking at the appeal when they requested additional information. Diocese officials have pointed to declining mass attendance, a growing priest shortage, and financial difficulties in many parishes as driving the need to merge parishes and close churches across 8 counties. They have yet to fully review the decrees from the dicastery for clergy, but will abide by them, according to one church official. The diocese fully supports the right of parishes to appeal its decisions pertaining to closures and mergers, which has been part of the process from the beginning of the Road to Renewal implementation, said Reverend Brian Zelenensky, the diocese vicar for Renewal and Development. We are continuing our collaboration with the pastors and parish leaders of the diocese as we implement the family of parishes model, and together work to define the future of Catholic faith and impact across Western New York. It was the second and third time in a little more than a month that the Vatican has issued a ruling in favor of parishioners seeking to keep their parish independent. The dicastery in November issued a similar ruling in a case involving St. Bernadette Parish in Orchard Park, where a parishioner group had appealed Fisher's decree merging the parish with Saints Peter and Paul in Hamburg. According to Catholic canon law, the diocese may challenge the dicastery decision in a higher Vatican court, but a diocese spokesman said there's no plan to do so in the case of St. Bernadette and Holy Apostles. A spokeswoman for Save Our Buffalo Churches, a grassroots organization assisting parishioners with their appeals, said on Monday that the recent Vatican decisions in favor of parishioner groups should be a signal to Fisher and other diocese officials to reverse course on its Road to Renewal parish restructuring efforts. This is enough of a track record that they should be paying attention and pulling back, said Mary Pruski, the spokeswoman. All told, more than 30 parish groups submitted requests for recourse. In the case involving St. Bernadette, Holy Apostles, and Our Lady of Peace, the dicastery found that Fisher's decree had not shown just cause for why the parishes should be merged and how the merger would benefit parishioners. We're joyful that the dicastery is listening, said Pruski. It would be good if the diocese would just say stop it, suspend it, whatever. Stop the road to renewal, and let's sit back and start to heal and come at the problems in a different way.
Thank you. From Mike Petro, Buffalo Next Business of Sports. Legends' effort on hiring at new stadium faces urgency. The concessionaire taking over the Buffalo Bills' new stadium is making additional efforts to help achieve lofty regional participation goals for minority and women-owned businesses starting next season. Legends Global is now communicating with certified MWBEs as well as making additional inroads to get more firms certified, helping improve the pool of businesses eligible to work possibly inside the new building. That includes launching a new regional mentorship program next year and creating a committee to specifically focus on the hiring task. Legends and the Bills have also had some initiatives under review for the operations and maintenance of hiring at the new stadium. With about 8 months until more than $2 billion stadium is expected to be substantially completed, the panel overseeing goals of the community benefits agreement tied to the building of the new stadium have expressed concern about whether that is enough time for the team to meet hiring goals for vendors certified as minority and women-owned businesses. Members of the Oversight Committee, formed nearly 2 years ago as part of the CBA, have said more than once that the process needs to get moving so as not to repeat the slow start that it experienced meeting diversity worker goals for the stadium construction progress. We're continuing to work internally with the state to make sure we're tracking on all of our processes so we can really hit the road running, Penny Samaya, Bill's vice president for new stadium relations, said Monday during the Community Benefits Oversight Committee's monthly meeting at the former SUNY ECC South Campus. Of the retailers, vendors, and service companies used in new stadium maintenance and operation, 30% are expected to be minority and women-owned business entities. Legends is also expected to make service-disabled veteran-owned businesses 6% of the pool of vendors and service companies hired. Additionally, Legends is required to purchase 30% of its food products used at the new stadium from MWBE certified food service companies, and preferences should be given to food and beverage items for sale if the new stadium produced and manufactured in New York. Legends also will be required to administer food and beverage service mentorship programs for MWBE firms. That means where there's a lot of work to be done to ensure that there are enough certified firms that can do this type of work and are on board by the time the stadium is slated to open in July. Legends has contacted certified firms already in the database to engage with them, and is also speaking with restaurants that fit the bill to see whether they would be interested in getting certified, Samaya said. The company is also launching a new regional mentorship program geared toward food and facility maintenance vendors. It will feature developmental workshops and programs that will help these firms engage with Legends. Legends has also created a committee focused on ideas to connect with certified and non-certified MWBE firms in the food industry, especially businesses that may need some assistance. It plans to hire a community benefits manager in the first quarter of 2026. There's only a finite number of certified businesses, so we've been hosting all these workshops, and this is Legends' global piece to help with that, Samaya said. Legends also plans to host a seasonal hiring fair in the second quarter of next year. Member Mo Sumbundu, Director of Community Relations for Governor Kathy Hochul, said he would like more information released publicly over the next few months about when residents should be on the lookout for these jobs and how many jobs will ultimately be available. Legends also wants to have its major hires in place for running the food and beverage and retail programs at the new stadium before it brings aboard local and diverse vendors, Samaya previously said. There will also be an MWBE informational session in partnership with the Bills for food growers, producers, and processors on December 11th at Meriwether Library. A similar session in November brought 27 individual businesses and 41 guests. Panel members said they would like to see more data from the team on the impact of these events and whether participants are ultimately benefiting. And when the panel looked back on what stuck out as the biggest community priorities and vulnerabilities expressed over 2 sessions of hearing from local residents and organizations, youth services and support again surfaced as the biggest need for the bills to focus on in the coming year. Some of the biggest issues for youth in the community were identified, including access to housing, food, and jobs. Members Maria White, Chief Community Impact Officer and Chief of Staff for the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, and Franchelle Parker, Executive Director of Open Buffalo, met with Samaya to discuss the feedback program provided by the community received during recent public forums. The panel expects to pass a resolution with its recommendations to the bills at their next monthly meeting in January. The bills say they invested more than $3.6 million as part of the community initiatives from March 29th of 2024 to March 28th of 2025. The latest investment included more than $1.9 million for community and civic programs, more than $975,000 for economic development, and more than $697,000 for youth and education, and the team has now invested more than $7.2 million in the community through fiscal years 2023 and 2024 as required as part of a CBA over the 33-year life of the stadium lease and the construction period. The bill's community investment is expected to total more than $120 million over 33 years.
So, are you dreaming of a white Christmas? This probably will be your year. Weather conditions in the Buffalo area, including frigid temperatures as far as can be predicted, suggest plenty of snow on the ground come the 25th of December. But forecasters say don't make your sledding plans just yet. It's much too early to say with any semblance of accuracy whether we will have a white Christmas, said National Weather Service meteorologist Philip Pandolfo. Of course not. The Buffalo area is forecast to experience below normal temperatures through the 20th of December, boo, according to the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center. During that time, the centers predict the area is expected to see above normal precipitation, or snowfall, if you will. Come on the 28th of December through the January 2nd, Buffalo may see temperatures that align with historical norms, typically ranging between 25 and 37 degrees, according to the Climate Prediction Center. In general, any snow we will receive over the next few storms could stick around, Pandolfo said, adding that it's still far too early to say for certain. Beginning Tuesday afternoon, western New York is expected to see a couple of inches of snow, Pandolfo said, and that will be followed by a really long period of continual snowfall, perhaps broken up by rainfall if temperature rises, he said. Present weather conditions aside, it is typical for Buffalo to have the type of Christmas popularized by author Jane Austen in her 1815 novel Emma and Charles Dickens' 1843 novel A Christmas Carol, and then seared into the public consciousness in song by Irving Berlin and Bing Crosby. Over the past 50 years, Buffalo has had snow on the ground or seen measurable snowfall about 70% of the time on the 25th of December, according to data from the National Center for Environmental Information. On the other 30%, the area has seen unseasonably warm temperatures or sometimes rain, historical data has shown. As climate change impacts western New York, that trend appears to be changing slightly. In the past 10 years, Buffalo has had a white Christmas half of the time, the data shows. And in 2024, Buffalo didn't see new snowfall, but it was cold. Temperatures only reached a high of 31 degrees on Christmas Day, and there were plenty on the ground to make it a white Christmas. But the year before, in 2023, Buffalo saw temperatures rise to 57 degrees on Christmas Day. The area also has not seen snow since the 19th of December that year, according to historical weather data. The year before that will be remembered for generations as one of the worst storms in the region's history, rivaling the blizzard of '77 for intensity and causing the deaths of 50 people. Those eager to make those Christmas time plans will just have to wait and see. Buffalo weather may throw us a snowball or a curveball.
Yes, it could. So, well, you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It's 14 minutes past the hour, and we move on to sports. And from Lance Lazowski, the coach says Bills are getting tough enough to realize their potential. Oh, they are? Try not to editorialize here.
No, it's okay.
Winning consecutive high-stakes games with significant injuries on offense and defense led Coach Sean McDermott to an important conclusion as Buffalo Bills begin to prepare for the New England Patriots. His team, despite some ugly losses that put their playoff hopes in jeopardy and season-ending injuries, may finally be realizing his potential. I think it's an important thread of our team, and we've always been a tough football team, a tough organization, McDermott said Monday during his press conference, is something we take a lot of pride in, and in order to play down the stretch, handling some of the situations and managing those things, you've got to have toughness. That's an important piece of playing good football. The AFC East title will be on the line Sunday when the Bills, at 9-4, get their rematch against the Patriots, who are 11-2, in Gillette Stadium at 1 p.m. Losing the first matchup, as well as a game in Miami, made it highly unlikely Buffalo will be able to rally to win a sixth consecutive conference championship, but McDermott's team played its way back into the race the past 2 weeks with wins over the Steelers and the Bengals. Dear God, please.
Really?
Just once before I die. The Bills' defense allowed fewer than 100 rushing yards in his past 2 games and has forced 12 turnovers in his past 7 games. The offense has scored 65 points in the past 2 games, totaling 356 passing yards and 432 rushing yards. The opponent this week, let's see where I am, is much better than Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. The Patriots, led by quarterback Drake May, a legitimate candidate for most valuable player, will have won 10 straight games. Now the injury report. Bills edge rusher Joey Bosa has a hamstring, linebacker Terry Burrell, elbow injury, wide receiver Joshua Palmer, ankle, and right tackle Spencer Brown, shoulder are improving, said McDermott. Each will need to be evaluated in the coming days before a decision is made on their availability for the game on Sunday. McDermott told reporters last week Bosa is considered week to week, and he said Monday that the edge rusher has a chance to face the Patriots. I believe there is, he said. Brown was the closest to playing against the Bengals, and his replacement, Ryan Van Demark, took 2 holding penalties. In Bosa's absence, the Bills had 14 pressures on 37 dropbacks. Tight end Dalton Kincaid, meanwhile, did not suffer a setback while playing 22 snaps Sunday. He caught 6 passes for a season-high 108 yards in Buffalo's 23-20 loss to New England in Week 5. In addition, after arriving Monday at One Bills Drive, McDermott met briefly with his newest defensive back, Darnell Savage Jr., who the team claimed off waivers from Washington late last week. Savage, 28, started 69 games across 5 seasons with the Green Bay Packers, and he started 13 games for the Jacksonville Jaguars last season. He got cut after just 2 games this season because he didn't fit in with the Jaguars' new coaching staff and scheme. Savage caught on with the Washington Commanders, but they cut him on Thursday. A first-year draft pick in 2019, Savage had 9 interceptions and 31 passes defended in his first 4 NFL seasons. The Bills scouted Savage prior to his draft year, and he's someone they've monitored in recent seasons. Primarily as safety, Savage may be used in different positions. He's a guy that we've had our eyes on going back even to the draft process, and then he left Green Bay for Jacksonville and Jacksonville to Washington the last couple months, said McDermott. Like any player this time of year, you're trying to see what you can add to help our football team. Learning is going to take some time. Maybe he plays some safety. Maybe he plays some nickel. Maybe he plays some special teams. Just take it one day at a time. And to bounce back, Bills rookie cornerback Maxwell Hairston experienced another harsh lesson Sunday when he allowed a 15-yard touchdown reception to the Bengals' T. Higgins. There were encouraging moments, though. Harrison had 2 pass breakups. He allowed 3 catches on 6 targets for 45 yards, including a 21-yard reception, but the Bills saw their first-round draft picks resolved. Growing in the system, said McDermott, growing the level of details he needs to execute and play with to play winning football for us. And Sunday he had one that I know he wants back that we all saw, but again, there's growth in the game. Even Sunday with some of the things where the ball wasn't thrown his way in terms of techniques, he'll learn from that situation, and it's a good experience for him at the same time.
And from Jay Skursky, when it comes to going for it on last down, McDermott plays to win. There wasn't an ounce of hesitation facing 4th and goal from the Cincinnati Bengals 3-yard line Sunday with 3 minutes and 9 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Coach Sean McDermott faced a big decision. He thought he had just watched his team score a touchdown, but replay review correctly determined that Dawson Knox was just out of bounds on a 3rd down pass from Josh Allen. That meant the score was still 32-28 in favor of the Bills. A chip shot field goal would extend the Bills' lead to 35-28, but give the ball back to Joe Burrow and the high-scoring Cincinnati offense, needing a touchdown to either tie the score with an extra point or perhaps pull ahead if Bengals coach Zach Taylor opted to go for a 2-point conversion. McDermott wasn't willing to take that chance. The Bills kept their offense on the field, and Allen delivered the eventual game-winning points in the form of a touchdown pass to rookie tight end Jackson Hawes, who dropped to the turf and did a snow angel in celebration. Honestly, there was no conversation, Allen said after the win about what to do on 4th down. I came to the sideline and thought the play to Knox was a touchdown. Obviously, they said it was not a touchdown over the Jumbotron, and it was just calling the personnel for the offense, so we're just going back in. So I really trust McDermott for being aggressive tonight on 4th downs. I know early on in the game, too, we converted on a few, so yeah, it feels good to have that trust in him. The decision proved wise because the Bengals needed just 4 plays and 50 seconds to go 66 yards for a touchdown when they got the ball back. Their 2-point conversion attempt failed, making the score 39-34 at that point, and the Bengals elected to kick off with the 2-minute warning and 1 timeout, meaning the Bills needed to gain 1 first down to ice the win. They got it when Allen scrambled for 17 yards on a 3rd and 15 play, kicked the field goal to go up 7, and there is no guarantee the Bills win Sunday. Aggressive, toughness. McDermott said of the decision to go for the touchdown, those are the things that you work on during the week. Whether it was toughness or a firm grasp on analytics, the Bills' 4th down decisions proved to be a big key to the game against the Bengals. Buffalo actually settled for a field goal in the first quarter when ESPN Analytics suggested going for it on 4th and 5 from the Bengals' 8-yard line, with 1:57 left in the first quarter, with the Bills trailing by a touchdown. Buffalo's win probability with the field goal was 48.8%, but it was 51.2% if the offense had gone for it. From that point, McDermott was spot on with his 4th down decision making. With 11 minutes and 23 seconds left in the second quarter and the Bills trailing by 11 points, McDermott kept the offense on the field for a 4th and 4 play at the Bengals' 45-yard line. The result was an 11-yard completion to Gabe Davis that moved the chains. Later on the same drive, the offense again stayed on the field for a 4th and 4 play. This time, Allen made something out of nothing to find Khalil Shakir for an 11-yard touchdown with 7 minutes and 27 seconds remaining. The first decision on that drive increased the Bills' win probability by 2.6%, while the second increased it by 2.4%. Later in the second quarter, the Bills went for a 4th and 3 on the Bengals' 43-yard line with 1 minute and 16 seconds left in the first half. That one didn't work out, as Allen's pass intended for Shakir fell incomplete. The win probability of going for it in that situation increased by 3.5%. Despite that failure, McDermott wasn't scared away from being aggressive, so when the 4th down decision came in the fourth quarter, the offense was ready. The Bills' win probability increased 3.7 from 88.4% to 92.1% based on that decision. The staff does a really good job. Dennis Locke, Mark Lubick in particular, do a really good job of sharing some of the information leading into the game in terms of how we want to play, and if we get a situation like that, what we want to do, McDermott said. Those guys were on it from the top, so give credit where credit is due. Then the offense executed. Great to see Jackson Hawes come through right there, a rookie in those moments when the lights are rather bright, I'd say. Entering Week 14, McDermott has shown to be one of the best 4th down decision makers in the NFL. Ben Baldwin, a football analyst who has long tracked 4th down calls by NFL coaches at the website rbsdm.com, had the Bills ranked number 5 in the league in terms of going for it on 4th down when they should through Week 3 at a shade below 70%. The Lions, led by the ultra-aggressive Dan Campbell, ranked number 1. The website tracked fourth down decisions by coaches. Through week 13, there were just 4 times this season, McDermott elected to punt when going for it. It would have resulted in a win probability increase of more than 1%. And those 4 occasions, week 3 against Miami, the Bills faced a 4th and 7 on their 49 with 10:20 left in the fourth quarter, and the score tied 21-21. The Bills chose to punt, but caught a break when the Dolphins were penalized for roughing the kicker, keeping Buffalo's drive alive. In week 6 against Atlanta, McDermott punted twice when analytics suggested going for it. In the second quarter, he punted on 4th and 3 from the 49 with 8:21 left, and Atlanta leading 21-7. That dropped the win probability to 3.6%. With 10:24 left in the fourth quarter, he punted on 4th and 5. In week 10 against Miami, McDermott punted on 4th and 1 from the Bills' 36-yard line with 10:23 left in the first quarter, and the game scoreless. That dropped the team's win probability 1.5%. Basically, McDermott has been solid on his fourth down decisions all season, with the exception of the loss to Atlanta. There is a good chance the Bills will move into the top 3 teams in making fourth down decisions after the conclusion of Week 14 based on McDermott's decision against the Bengals. Decisions that contribute to a big win. It was more obviously trying to do the right thing for our team and felt at the moment it was important for us to be aggressive, he said. Maybe that's my wrestling nature, to be aggressive.
Well, the player of the game is Josh Allen. The league's most valuable player showed exactly why he is that, going in 22-28 for 251 yards and 3 touchdowns, along with adding 78 rushing yards and another touchdown on 9 carries. He's generational. Running back Ty Johnson said of Allen. And the quote of the game, that's why it's 2 halves of football, right? 60 minutes, you got to just keep playing until the clock hits 0. Once they scored, Josh said, we needed 1. So when number 17 says you need 1, we've got to lock in and buckle up. Guys stepped up, and it doesn't matter who makes the play as long as the play gets made, and that's from Thompson. And now from Associated Press, Steelers are still alive for a spot in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers shut up the folks calling for Mike Tomlin's departure for 1 week at least. The Green Bay Packers and Jacksonville Jaguars defended their home turf and took over first place in their respective divisions. The Houston Texans moved another step toward a playoff berth while damaging Kansas City's hopes. Week 14's biggest games didn't disappoint. Rodgers played his best game of the season, and the Steelers held on for a 27-22 victory in Baltimore to move 1 game ahead of the Ravens in the AFC North. In a week where former Steelers star players Ben Roethlisberger and James Harrison said it's time for a new coach in Pittsburgh, the team rallied around Tomlin and came up with its biggest victory of the season. Awesome team win, Tomlin said. I'm just appreciative of the effort of the men in that locker room. It's classic Steelers versus Ravens. The Steelers at 7-6 will host Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens at 6-7 in Week 18. So the division could be decided that day. Rodgers, who turned 42 last Tuesday, has a season-high 284 yards passing, 1 interception, and wasn't sacked. He also scored his first rushing touchdown in 3 years. That's why you do business with a guy like Aaron, Tomlin said. Thick days like today, he's been there, done that guy. Beyond the experiences, a component of it, he relishes it. You can just tell that's the benefit of having a guy like him. The Steelers host Miami at 6-7 next Monday night, while the Ravens visit Cincinnati at 4-9. I feel like each and every week there's no room for error. We are professionals, Jackson said. And now I feel like we are just trying to win as much as we can right now. We've just been talking about the 4-game stretch. You have to lock it in and put it all on the line. And the Colts collapse. In Jacksonville, the Jaguars gained control of the AFC South with a convincing 36-19 victory over the Indianapolis Colts. Trevor Lawrence played mistake-free, efficient football to lead Jacksonville, which is seeking its second divisional title in 4 years, with first-year coach Liam Cohen. The Jaguars at 9-4 host the lowly Jets at 3-10 next week. Meanwhile, the Colts at 8-5 lost Daniel Jones to an Achilles tendon injury and head to Seattle at 10-3, with rookie Riley Leonard at quarterback. They're now in danger of missing the playoffs entirely despite a 7-1 start. The Colts have lost 4 of 5 to fall to 8th with the AFC. They'll host the Jaguars in Week 17 and also play the 49ers, who are at 9-4, and finish against the Texans, who are 8-5, in a game that could determine the wild card spot.
And you are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News. The time is 10:29. And mutual friends turn two against another because we're going to ask Eric what he thinks about that. Dear Eric, recently I was trying to figure out how two friends of mine, James and John, had decided to stop talking to me and not continue our friendship. And it wasn't based on anything that happened between any of us. But then, upon thinking about what we all had in common, there was our mutual friend, Paulo. And then I realized what must have happened was when Paulo and I were having problems in our friendship, he probably complained to them about me. James and John didn't just drop our friendship out of the blue on their own, but it was heavily influenced by Paulo repeatedly complaining about me specifically. What I'm wondering is, how do I address this with Paulo to make him realize that he was a big influence and somehow steered them away from me permanently? This is problematic because then Paulo will probably get defensive or claim that he didn't do this, even though I realize he did the whole time. Signed, Dist a Lot. Dear Dist a Lot, from my read, your first conversation ought to be with James and John. That's the friendship you're trying to salvage, and continue to pull Paulo into the mix isn't going to accomplish that. James and John may be influenced by Paulo, but they're also independent people who can make their own choices. If they don't agree with something you did or have a negative feeling about you based on something Paulo said, the best way to address it is with them directly. Try having an open conversation free from defensiveness. Use I statements. I am sad that you're choosing not to continue our friendship. I respect the choice you've made, but I would appreciate the chance to clear the air and make amends. Ask them what their issues are and what they feel the issues in your friendship are. They may not be interested in fixing the friendship right now. You may need to accept that too. With regard to Paulo, think about what you actually want from this friendship, if anything. It may have run its course. If that's the case, convincing him that you have undue influence over other people won't really get you closer to your goals. This is less about rehashing what's been done as it is about making the future you want.
Oh.
Dear Eric, in a year that has been filled with not so great things, family members being furloughed, health issues, rising costs, how does one tell the family you don't want any gifts? My husband and I have plenty of things. We don't need anything or clothes or food. In the past, the family members have all planned lists. There are children that will get gifts from Santa, but how do we tell the rest of the fairly large family that enough is enough? Signed, Realistic Gift Giving. Dear Gift Giving, meet their lists with a list of your own. You can make a list of charities you'd like them to contribute to in lieu of gifts, or a list of gifts that can't be bought, like quality time or homemade treats. Or your list can just have one item. We have everything we could want. All we ask for is your continued love and support. Oh,
That's a good answer.
yes it is. Dear Eric, this is in response to walking seniors whose neighbor would turn the sprinkler on them when they walk by his house. I happen to be a lawyer, and I would suggest the letter writer bypass the police who are doing nothing, go directly to his state attorney or district attorney's office and file a complaint of harassment. And I would get a temporary restraining order through the clerk's office against the person who owns the house. A temporary restraining order, at least in my state, would require a hearing to make it permanent, drawing that man in front of the court. I believe any judge in his right mind will then school him on how to be neighborly. I have never sent an email like this, but that story kind of touched me, and I think there are legal avenues this couple can pursue so they can still walk down their street, pet the cats they've come to love, and not be assaulted by proxy neighbors. Signed, Another View. Dear View, thank you for your insight. It's a good way to escalate the issue without escalating the conflict. Some readers respond to the letter with frustration that this couple had to endure harassing behavior from their neighbor from little recourse beyond taking matters in their own hands. It felt important to me not to advise them to put themselves in danger, considering the neighbor's behavior suggests there's other issues at play. So your solution of finding other authorities who can intervene is a welcome one.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's amazing what people can be like. Go back to the front page, the upshot. The slot machines in your hand are paying off big for some states. This is from Ben Blatt of the New York Times. Some casinos in Las Vegas take sports bets, but that's not where the real money is. The bulk of their profit comes from games such as slot machines and blackjack. Many states have legalized online sports betting in recent years, but a handful have learned the same lessons. If the goal is to increase tax revenue, the big money comes from allowing full legal casino on your phone. Pennsylvania is one of 7 states to have done that. It legalized both online casino gaming and online sports betting for ages 21 and up in 2017. By last year, the state was collecting $1.05 billion in taxes from digital casinos compared with $188 million from sportsbook apps. Pennsylvania's entire state budget is often about $50 billion. The state taxes online slots at a higher rate, which explains why some of the difference. But Pennsylvanians are also losing a lot more money to online casino games than on sports bets. Donna Buschelberger, 57, lives in Littletown, Pennsylvania near Gettysburg and works at a home care worker. She said she had never gambled until she downloaded a casino app during the pandemic. In the last few years, she's lost at least $15,000 on BetMGM Casino, mostly playing Slingo, which is a fusion of bingo and slot machines. Her car was repossessed, she said, and she's facing eviction after missing rent payments. She's also part of a class action lawsuit against the casinos alleging predatory marketing tactics. Yes, she was in the middle of gambling when I called her. If they were to close down the site tomorrow, I would be mad because I couldn't do it, but it would be helping me in the long run, she said. BetMGM did not respond to a request for comment. 30 states permit online sports betting, but only 7 have legalized online casinos, though more may soon join in. A bill legalizing online casinos in Maine awaits a decision of Governor Janet Mills, who has not signaled if she will sign it. Lawmakers in several other states, including New York, Hawaii, Massachusetts, and Ohio, are also considering allowing online casino gaming. 7 states with legal online casinos collected a total of $2.1 billion last year from gambling apps, according to Legal Sports Report. Over the same period, online sportsbook generated about $2.9 billion in tax revenue for the 30 states where they are legal. States with both have seen tax revenue of casino games far outpace revenue from sportsbooks. Edgar Gonzalez Jr., a Democrat in the Illinois House of Representatives, would like his state to join them. Gonzalez, who last year was a sponsor of a bill to legalize online casinos, said he would like more money for programs related to homelessness and education without raising income tax. He said federal spending cuts have made the case for illegal online casinos more compelling. It's just a matter of how we can come up with our own money, he said, because we can't rely on the federal government for it. When New Jersey legalized online casino games in 2013, Michael Doherty, a Republican, was the only senator to vote against it. He continued voting against anything to make gambling easier through his time in office, he said. Doherty said gambling is a negative activity that destroys a lot of lives, but also that New Jersey did a poor job of setting tax rates. Pennsylvania, for example, imposes a tax rate of 50% on online slots. This year, New Jersey raised its tax rate on online casinos to 19.75% from 15%. When you guys start collecting 50% of the profits from the gambling revenue, then you know, wake me up, Doherty said. In most states, online casinos are taxed at a higher rate than sportsbooks because they have a higher profit margin and more predictable revenue. Now, for the lure of slots, traditional slot machines were once the most common reason people call the problem gambling hotline run by the Council on Compulsive Gambling of Pennsylvania. But in the years since the state legalized online gambling, online casino games have become the number 1 reason for calls. The group's executive director, Josh Ercole, noted that many people in Pennsylvania live long distances from an in-person casino, but anyone can play online slot machines without having to get out of bed. A spin on an app often takes less than 2 seconds, he said, while a traditional slot machine in a casino could take up to 15 seconds. Melissa Stewart, 45, from Charleston, West Virginia, said as soon as she got sober from drugs, she got into gambling. She said that she has lost around $19,000 from online casinos and that it prevented her from taking her child out for activities. Okay, I see a problem here. In more ways than one. Stewart, a parking enforcement and attendant, said the tax revenue from online gambling and money is a money grab by the government. They don't care if a person's addicted, and they just keep going to keep on. They just want to get their money regardless. Despite her losses, she's still active on the apps for hours a day. It's like I'm trying to win back the money that I have lost, she said. I do it at home, I do it at work, everywhere. Expanding on online casinos to more states could be a boon not just for those governments, but also for large casino companies. DraftKings and FanFuel, for example, build their brands on fantasy sports and sports betting, but their casino apps generate roughly 4 times the profit of their flagship sports apps in states where both are legal, according to the tax records. Those companies decline to disclose user numbers for their respective casino apps. On sportsbook apps, many bettors wait hours or days for a game. In casino apps, gamblers can spin slot machines again and again. About half as much money is bet on sports in July than in September because there are fewer major sports events in July and no football. Online casinos don't have this issue with little variance in activity throughout the year. In Pennsylvania, the state collected more tax revenue from online casinos than physical lottery tickets for the first time last fiscal year. Marcus Simon, a Democratic delegate in Virginia's General Assembly, is co-sponsoring legislation to legalize online casinos. Gambling is everywhere already, he said, with offshore betting and other ways to skirt state bans, so it's better legalized and regulated, adding consumer protections and ways to detect problem gambling. I think, on balance, folks that really want to do this are finding ways to do it, he said. Michigan legalized online casinos and sports betting in 2019 with near unanimous bipartisan support in the legislature and from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Ed McBroom, a Republican, was one of just the 3 state senators who voted against the bill. McBroom said the state's collection of tax money from gambling creates a conflict of interest, incentivizing the government to get citizens to gamble more. But he said gambling in Michigan and the United States was still in its expansionary state. I don't see it changing anytime soon, he said. I'm clearly in the minority. I see so many problems with that.
Yes.
It makes people get homeless, but it's supposed to help people get not homeless. Discrepancy.
And moving over to the article, developer of app tracking ice raids sues the Trump team. In San Francisco, for 6 months, Apple distributed an app called IceBlock that allowed users to alert people when they saw immigration and custom enforcement agents. But after the Trump administration complained that the app endangered officers, Apple removed it. On Monday, the app's developer, Joshua Aaron, sued top Trump administration officials, accusing them of pressuring Apple to stifle his free speech and his right to create, distribute, and promote IceBlock. The suit, which was filed in the U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia, claimed that Attorney General Pam Bondi abused the government's power when the Justice Department contacted Apple and demanded it remove the app, which she said had done in a statement to Fox News in October. She said Apple removed the app after her request. The legal action could reveal more about Apple's decision-making and compliance with edicts from the Trump administration. According to Apple's own public records, it has removed apps at the request of authoritarian governments like China and Russia, but not from the U.S. government. The removal of IceBlock came as tech companies took down other immigration-related apps and services. Apple removed an app called De-Icer, which helped users report immigration action. Google removed a similar app called Red Dot, and Meta, Facebook's parent company, removed the Facebook group ICE, citing Chicagoland for violating its policies against coordinated harm. Representatives for Bondi and the Trump administration didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Apple declined to comment also. The suit is the latest example of a partisan legal battle over how Republicans and Democrats have used control over the White House to influence the digital economy. In 2022, Republican attorneys general sued the Biden administration, accusing it of forcing social media companies to stifle skepticism about COVID-19 and vaccines. The Supreme Court ruled in the administration's favor, saying the government could contact social media platforms about misinformation. The Trump administration has condemned IceBlock and other apps that were critical of its immigration policies. Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, said the app obstructed justice. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said it incited violence against law enforcement. A representative for Noem didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. The administration's pressure preceded the removal of IceBlock and the other apps. And late last month, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a digital rights group, filed a lawsuit against the Justice Department and Department of Homeland Security to try to unearth information about any communications between the government and tech companies that might reveal coercion to restrict protected speech. Aaron followed with his own suit on Monday. A lesson we should all take from this is when we see our government is doing something wrong, it is our duty to stand up, Aaron said. Apple's removal of IceBlock is consistent with how it has handled requests from governments around the world, but out of step with its approach in the United States. In 2016, Apple refused to comply with a request from the FBI that it unlock the phone of a terrorist who killed 14 people in San Bernardino, California. It said that doing so would endanger the privacy and security of all its customers. Aaron said Apple's decision to remove IceBlock showed that it was in bed with this administration or under threat from it. He and his legal team hope the court will rule that the government can't make threats against private companies and Apple return the app to its store.
Thank you. Well, now we turn to television. What to watch on Tuesday. That's today, December the 9th of 2025. All times are Eastern. College basketball, the Jimmy 5 Classic at ESPN begins at 6:30 p.m. live as New York City's Madison Square Garden hosts the event, benefiting the V Foundation for Cancer Research with Clemson versus BYU and Florida versus UConn. NHL hockey is on TNT and True TV beginning at 7 p.m. live. And that'll be the NFL action at the Vegas Golden Knights at the New York Islanders on TNT, followed by the Colorado Avalanche at the Nashville Predators on TNT and True TV. And Kevin Costner presents The First Christmas at ABC at 8 p.m. He's going to host a special exploring the extraordinary journey of Mary and Joseph as they navigate the hardships, trials, and triumphs surrounding Jesus Christ's birth, offering an inspiring way to celebrate the experience of true meaning of Christmas. And then at 8 p.m. NCIS will have a new episode, Stolen Moments. A man is shot by Secret Service outside the Vice President's official residence, and NCIS is aiding the case by a new member of the team, an AI chatbot being beta tested by the Department of Justice. And an old favorite, Frosty the Snowman, NBC at 8 p.m. Jimmy Durante narrates this classic animated musical special with Jackie Vernon providing the voice of the holly jolly happy soul, an old silk hat full of magic, and brings him to life. And then Shrek the Halls at NBC at 8:30. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, and Antonio Banderas reprise their voice roles in the hit Shrek feature films this 2007 half-hour holiday special, whose story takes place between Shrek III and Shrek Forever After. And then at 9 p.m., the Motown Christmas, hosted by Smokey Robinson and Halle Berry. This 2-hour special celebrates Motown's renowned legacy and showcases legends that their recording label performing holiday favorites with Hitsville USA classics. Some of today's biggest stars will also be on hand to perform exclusive solos, unexpected duets, group medleys. Performers include Robinson, Bailey, Gladys Knight, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, The Temptations, B.B. Winans, Ashanti, and Pentatonics, and more. And then a mid-season finale of NCIS at 9 p.m. on CBS, the fall season finale, End of the Road. Lala's Mario Molino favorite CI is shot, and the team joins forces with Oceanside PD to determine who is behind this attack. And Fixer Upper, Colorado Mountain House on HGTV and Magnolia Network at 9 p.m. Chip and Joanna Gaines head to Colorado for their first out-of-state fixer-upper in a premiere episode. We're not in Waco anymore. They tackle a 1960s mountain house in Colorado. And NCIS Sydney, CBS at 10 p.m. The NCIS team investigates the murder of an American sailor. It's tied to a true crime podcast about him, a new episode in Turkey Shoot. And there's a classic 70th anniversary films at TCM beginning at 6 a.m. The year 1955, the first McDonald's franchise, TV premieres of Mickey Mouse Club, and Captain Kangaroo, and the death of actor James Dean. And now they mark the release of these memorable 70-year-old movies. Henry Fonda, Jack Lemmon, and Navy comedy Mr. Roberts, the classic Kismet, and Oklahoma, and The Night of the Hunter. So, and then we have movies you'll love. American Made 2017 comedy drama with Tom Cruise. That's at 6:05 p.m. Santa Claus Part 2 from 2002. Family, and that's Tim Allen and Elizabeth Mitchell on Freeform at 6:25. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. That's with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard at SYFY Sci-Fi at 7 p.m. Ferris Bueller's Day Off from 1986 comedy, Matthew Broderick and Arthur Ruck at MGM at 8 p.m. Following Yonder Star 2024 drama, Brooke O'Dorsey and John Brotherton, Hallmark 8 p.m. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles from 1987 comedy from Steve Martin and John Candy, AMC at 8 p.m. Sins of the Brides 2024. That's Kyle Kanduk and Charlie Townsend, LMN at 8 p.m. Rudy 1993. Sean Astin and Ned Beatty on BBC America 8:30. Unexpected Christmas 2025 comedy from Lil Rel Howery and Maria Horsfeld that stars at 9 p.m. Little Women 2019 drama. Cerise Ronan and Emma Watson on FXM at 9:20 p.m. Beast at 2022 suspense from Idris Elba and Sharito Copley as Sci-Fi, SYFY at 10 p.m. and the Operation Nutcracker from 2024 romance. Ashley Newbro and Christopher Russell's that's going to be a Hallmark Mystery at 10 p.m.
Okay, and there's a new proposal for McCarley that would change the traffic pattern. The battle over McCarley Gardens continues, and now it could mean a new road and traffic pattern in part of downtown. The developer that is planning a 220-unit affordable housing project to expand McCarley now wants to purchase the city-owned commercial vacant lot at 685 Ellicott Street. That land comprises the dogleg extension of North Oak Street, where it curves to connect to Ellicott Street across from Virginia. And it would be used as part of the construction of the new complex. In exchange, the developer, owned by BFC Partners and St. John Baptist Church, would construct a new road on land it already owns that would link North Oak with Virginia farther north, straightening the street and restoring the city's old grid prior to construction of the McCarley Gardens affordable housing community. And the developer would then convey that street and related property back to the city. The Ellicott Street property has been valued at $695,200 based on an independent appraisal conducted by Howard Schultz and Associates, LLC, and approved by the city's appraisal review board. The other land is valued at $430,500. So to make it an even swap, the BFC is proposing to pay the city an additional $264,700 as the difference in value between the two properties. However, the actual closing and transfer would not take place until the BFC and St. John's complete the construction of the new building. And there's a great picture here, but I couldn't explain it to you if I tried.
Yeah.
The land swap was always planned as part of the second phase of redevelopment at McCarley because the BFC says it needs the extra land adjacent to the existing housing community in order to accommodate the new building as planned. But it has become the center of controversy and focal point of a legal battle with the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, which has cited a variety of arguments and assertions about the ways in which it claims the project, and especially the rerouting of North Oak, will hurt the campus and its member institutions. 4 months ago, the medical campus sued again to block the developer from moving ahead with construction and rerouting. In its lawsuit against the city and developers, the medical campus alleged at the time that the city planning board had improperly approved the $134 million project because the developers had not demonstrated that they had complete site control of all the property, particularly the portion of North Oak that is owned by the city. The BFC and St. John have repeatedly rejected the medical campus's arguments, and so far the court has agreed. They have also denounced the medical campus for obstructing affordable housing that would benefit not only the surrounding community, but also some of the nurses and other medical workers. And they argue that there are no point or need to obtain ownership of the land before the city approved the development plan. But the redevelopment project was approved again on the 28th of July after the planning board again issued a negative declaration of environmental impact, so the developers decided to move ahead with the land acquisition. Neither the BFC nor the medical campus would comment on Monday. At issue is the second phase of an effort to rehabilitate the aging McCarley complex, which is owned by St. John. The earlier phase involved renovation of 135 townhome units and construction of 15 new ones to replace 15 townhomes that were torn down. The second phase entails construction of 265,680 square feet, building at 1.6 acre stub of McCarley at the corner of Virginia and Ellicott Streets. Besides redirecting the street, the project would also narrow part of the 3,000-foot-long Ellicott Linear Park that runs through the medical campus, but which was created just 12 years ago on both private and city-owned land, including land granted by St. John through an easement that can legally be revoked. Developers already gave notice of such revocation to the medical campus, and the park would still be 30 to 36 feet wide in all places.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, December 9th of 2025. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Lita
and JJ Patek. Thank you for listening.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. If you're worried about food, heating assistance, or other basic needs for your household, help is available. Call 211 for local food pantries, meal services, and other supports in your neighborhood. That's 211. Available 24 hours a day, every day, with free and confidential referrals. Get the help you need today. Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of today's supermarket, or this week's supermarket ads, I should say. And then at noon, we have today's USA Today. Stay with us for these readings and more. Is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,